David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another review. Today I have for you a special notebook with some very interesting paper, and that would be the Onion Skin Journal. I have a couple of different things to share. I have a notebook as well as a notepad. I'll show you both, but mainly I'm going to focus on the unique paper, which is onion paper. Thanks go out to Remy Road, which is the name of the company who produces what you will see today, as well as the name of the woman who runs the company. Remy is a poet who had a long-running quest to find the perfect journal. Her first task was picking a paper which held character and heart. While researching paper, she came across onion skin paper, which at times in history was widely used, but had mainly fallen out of favor over the years. The paper has some unique and interesting qualities she fell in love with and decided to use it in her journals that she wanted to create. Okay, to get a closer look at this journal, as well as the special paper contained within, please join me over here at camera 2. So I have two things here from Remy Road. I have this journal. I'll put it sideways just so it fits nicely in the screen here. Even though it's sideways, you get the idea. There's the journal, and then there is also a notepad. I think the key feature here in both of these is the onion paper. So let's start by taking a look at the notepad and discussing the paper, and then we'll get to the notebook in a bit. The notebook is 5.4 inches wide and 8.5 inches tall, and then also a 1/4 inch thick. There is approximately 125 sheets of paper in here. Compared to a standard A5 notebook, this one's from Galen Leather, that you can see it is a little bit taller, just a little barely taller, and a bit more narrow. It does have a cardboard back, and it has a textured cardstock cover printed with an Oribus. The Oribus is an ancient symbol of a serpent devouring itself and being reborn from itself. It symbolizes unity of all things and rebirth, and things that never disappear but perpetually change form in an eternal cycle of recreation. Inside, we have the paper. It is slightly cream colored and very thin. You could, see my hand through this paper. To me, it feels a little bit thinner than 52-gram Tomoe River paper. I'm uncertain of the actual weight of this paper. It is made from 100% wood pulp and is surprisingly strong for being so thin and translucent. And these sheets tear right out, just like that. I've used a number of sheets for writing letters, and the pages easily separate from the pad. I have been intrigued by onion paper in the past and actually purchased some. I don't recall exactly what I purchased, but when I tried it out, I really didn't care for what I had bought. I didn't find what I purchased to be fountain pen friendly at all, but that's not the case with the onion paper used for this product. I actually care for this paper a great deal, and as you'll see, it performs very nicely. This is what a few ink swabs look like on the paper. This orange here is Kiwi Inks, quite a rough customer. The brown here is Private Reserve Copper Burst. And then the teal here is Stilo and Stile's Roman Bronze Oxidation. Overall, I would say that this paper is very receptive to fountain pen ink. In comparison, here is some 80-gram Rhodia paper, and then here is some 52-gram Tomoe River paper, and then here is the onion skin paper. Let's see if we can get those all three on the same screen. There, you can kind of get them here. With both the Tomoe River as well as the onion skin, I noticed that the ink had a tendency to kind of sit on top of the page a little bit before settling in, and it was a little bit more absorbed on the Rhodia paper. In regard to some of the sheening, you could see that there's a considerable amount more sheen on the Tomoe River as well as the onion paper, as opposed to the Rhodia where the ink looks a little bit more flat. In regard to bleed through, you can notice that obviously there is a ton of ghosting on here, but there was very little bleed through. There was maybe a little bit on the copper burst here, but what you're seeing is basically ghosting and very little on the bleed through side. In regard to writing, this is what the back side of the paper looks like if you write on the front of it. This is a letter that I wrote to a viewer. I've always committed that if you would care to send me a letter, then I promise to write back. Folks who write for the first time, for them, I tend to include little extras in with the letter, like maybe a writing sample from a review. If you'd care to use your pens for some correspondence, my P.O. box address is in the notes below each video. So this is definitely a paper that you're only going to use one side of. Again, there's a very high amount of ghosting, which is to be expected with a paper so thin. You know, I did have a little bit of bleed through here at the bottom. I typically don't have many issues with the oils in my hands causing problems further down the page, but I have noticed that this paper was a little bit more susceptible to being affected by that. So here at the bottom, by the time I got down, I did have a little bit of skipping, which I believe was caused by some of the oils from my hand, and I kind of had to reapply the ink in a couple of spots that led to a little bit of bleed through. With the notebook comes a thicker piece of cardstock, which is lined on one side and has dot grid on the other. You know, I can barely write in a straight line, so having a guide like this really helps. You put it under the piece of paper, and then you can use this in order to write. So having a guide like this is vital for me when writing, especially on thinner paper like this. Now, for a writing sample, I am going to use one of my favorite pens, but I'm a little biased. It's the Leonardo Momento Zero Figboot on pens. I just love how this pen turned out. This Jonathan Brooks resin is really vibrant. This first pen project went very well. There were a couple of hiccups, like there is with any project, but for the most part, it went well, and it was fun to see everyone on social media happy with their purchase. Now, this was my first project, but if you stay tuned in the very near future, you might be hearing about a new pen project. I'm not quite ready to share details yet, but I will say that it will be considerably more available to purchase than this model, which had a run of only 111 sell out in, probably around 30 seconds to a minute. So, Remy, the woman behind this company, is a poet. So for a writing sample, I thought I would share one of my favorite poems. And that is Hazel Tells Laverne. And it is by Catherine Howd Mahan. Now, one thing I love about this poem is that you could really hear the main character through the text with the slang and spelling, which forces you to speak with a bit of a southern accent. It says, "Last night I'm cleaning out my Howard Johnson's ladies' room when all of a sudden up pops this frog. Must have come from the sewers, swimming round trying to climb up the side of the bowl. So I goes to flush him down. But so help me God, he starts talking about a golden ball and how I can be a princess. Me, a princess. Well, my mouth drops all the way to the floor, and he says, 'Kiss me, just kiss me, once on the nose.' Well, I screams, 'You little green pervert,' and I hits him with my mop and has to flush the toilet down 3 times. Me, a princess." Now, I'm not going to analyze this poem. With things like this, folks are going to have all kinds of interpretations as to the message the author was trying to convey. It just makes me laugh, especially when she calls the dude a little green pervert. And again, you could see that here there is, if I go ahead and take this out, there is a high amount of ghosting, but there is not much, if any, bleed through on the back side of this page. Okay, let's take a look at this journal. It is the same size, virtually the same size as the notebook, so just a little bit smaller than standard A4. On the front here, it is debossed with a black map of the world. It's rather thin here, but it's a little bit deceiving. With this paper being so thin, it contains 320 pages. Now, while technically that is correct, when you count the front and back side of the paper, it comes to 320, but in practice, you're really only going to be able to use around 160 pages since you're not going to use both sides of the paper. The binding here is a Smith sewn binding, which means that smaller groups of paper that are called signatures are sewn together. Books made with this method tend to be a little bit easier to lay down. While you're in the middle of this journal, it tends to lay down rather flat when you're in the middle. Let's see, let's go to the middle. So you can see it kind of lays down flat when you're in the middle. But I do find that when you're at the beginning and end, even though it doesn't quite lay flat, this thick linen cover does a good job of supporting you when you write. So when you're at the beginning and ends of the journal, it's not uncomfortable or cumbersome, which it can be from time to time with other journals. It comes with one of the guide sheets as well, and then there's also a black bookmark that is in here. That these books are manufactured and fabricated by a third-generation bookmaker, and they're made in the United States. I like this journal, and I've enjoyed using this paper. I've written a number of letters with it, and I've found that it performs very well. At the present time, the only place to purchase this journal as well as this notebook is on the company's website, which is onionskinjournal.com. I will put a link to it in the notes below. The notepad sells for $26 and that the journal sells for $46. They have a few other items on the site as well that you might want to check out. The company labels these items as a limited supply because they're made by hand on older machinery, and so at times they might sell out and there could be a bit of a waiting period for some buyers. This paper is a lot of fun to use. I do write a fair number of letters, so I have a feeling that I'm going to be going through this pad, and I just might have to purchase a couple more of these on my own, so I have a bit of a supply. Okay, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this unique product. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.